Mhm. Hi, morning, everybody. This morning we had some technical difficulties thanks to Rome and as well as Jan, who assisted me this morning. I'm so very grateful. I'm trying my best to do what I'm supposed to do, but I'm not so tech savvy. So let me say good morning to all our listeners out there. Um, Persons working at Hotel Chocolat, especially the agricultural section, Odell, all the persons at the market today, the bus drivers, persons in canneries, also our listeners overseas and on Facebook and so on. Let me just say a good morning to you. Today we have a very interesting topic, but before I start on our topic, one of the issues we had this morning, I would like to apologize on behalf of the chairperson of Soufriere Disaster Preparedness Committee, Mr. Placid. He was supposed to be with me today, but unfortunately, due to circumstances, he could not make it. And also the deputy chairperson also. These are all persons that are always willing to, Miss Casaba, these are persons that are always willing to help, but due to unforeseen circumstances, they are unable to come on the program to ensure that persons, are prepared for the hurricane season. And as we all know, June 1st is the starting of the hurricane season, and we also need to put things in place. Many persons do not take time during the starting of the hurricane season to start doing what they need to do. And that is why we're here. We're here to guide you. We're here to keep you aware of what is going on around you and how best you can start the process. The process can be slow, but at the end of the day, you need to accomplish what you need to accomplish for the hurricane season. And just because you're not hearing, oh, a storm is coming or a hurricane is coming, or there is heavy rains out there, and think that you'll have time to prepare. Persons always feel they have time to prepare, and when that time comes, it might be, hey, look, Miss Casabo, I was just apologizing on your behalf. So I'll have to call in Jan to come and assist me, or Rome if you are around. Miss Casabo is there as it relates to the camera. So let me just take a little pause and we'll get back with the program. All right. Okay, we are back. And I hope I did the right thing. She went and get Miss Jan for me because so Miss Casaboy is there, and I'm so glad. I know amidst everything, they they have so much to do, and I'm really really happy that she came in. So, like I was saying, for the hurricane season, June 1st to November 30th, a lot of people think they have time to do what they need to do. But sometimes these things come fast and furious, and sometimes we are not prepared. And we're asking families to come together and plan for the hurricane season. Spouse do not leave it on one person to do everything, but it has to be a collaborative effort within the family members, husbands, wives, children, parents, and so on. So it's always wise that you come together and plan, ensure that everybody knows what they need to do during the hurricane season as part of their responsibility as a family. So this year, I think we have quite a bit of names out there. And I think it's, let me see, 15 to be exact. Oh, I think I read quite a bit. And well, it's not 15. I'm reading 21. Yes. And there are quite a bit of names out there. So Jen is back to assist me. I'm not sure if I'm live. I'm not even sure where I am. So just Jen will guide me and then we'll take it from there. But Miss Casabo can be by me, you know. Yes. And just bring the mic, yes, so you can see both of us.
Is the mic on? Good morning, everybody.
Yes. So
Apologies for coming in a little bit late.
So I was saying, Miss Casabo, I just apologize on both of your behalf, Mr. Placid, as well as your behalf. I was just telling everybody I know you are always forthcoming when it comes to being on the program, but due to circumstances, um, you're unable to. But I'm glad you stepped in. I am really, really happy.
Yes, so Mr. Placid is currently dealing with the sunken yacht situation by the waterfront. The vessel was leaking some fuel, so before it turns into a marine disaster, they're trying to raise the vessel right now. So he is on site at the moment to provide any assistance if required. So I am here in his stead, stepping in to join the program. So good morning, Soufrierians. Good morning, listeners. I hope you are doing well, Ms. Wilson. Good morning to you as well.
Good morning. I am doing well. To tell you the truth, it's a beautiful day.
It is
Yes.
a little bit hazy. I mean, we have Sahara dust dealing with for those persons who have allergies. Take precautions this week, but we're expecting it to clear out. Hopefully, we should be getting some rain on Thursday and Friday.
Yeah, that Sahara dust is really, really bad. I can tell you people that have allergies as well as respiratory conditions, they really have to be mindful and so on. So now is the ideal time. You know, you can wear your mask. I mean, stay indoors. Make sure you wipe with a damp cloth because this thing is on everything.
Yes.
Yeah.
You can sit on the cars.
Mm-hmm.
So it will be on all surfaces inside your home. It will be on your clothing as well. So persons, we I don't think we understand how serious the Sahara dust is. I'm not sure what the statistics are like in St. Lucia, but I know for Trinidad actually puts out alerts and warnings, and they actually warn persons who have severe respiratory illnesses like COPD to remain indoors during periods of elevated Sahara dust levels. So for us in St. Lucia, I think we're taking it for granted. Persons who have allergies and COPD, you would know that your nose will be running, your eyes itchy, and persons who have respiratory illnesses have difficulty breathing. We need to start taking this thing seriously. In some parts of the world, they actually will be walking around wearing masks once the particulate level in the air, or the dust particles in the air, exceed a certain level. The public advisory is for everybody to walk around wearing masks. So wearing masks is not just for COVID; it's for protecting your respiratory health as well.
And I agree with that statement so well, Ms. Casabo, because even when we had the cards out, I remember you asked to send it to you, and you know some people were wondering. They keep on calling me and say, "What must we do?" I said, "Well, it's all around us. We just have to take these certain precautionary measures, especially if we know our children are asthmatic, if we suffer with allergies, and so on." And then you know some people will okay with it, but to me, like you said, they were not taking it that serious. Unless a lot of things, unless it doesn't affect you, you don't really take it seriously.
Yeah, but you have to realize that if this thing is settling on cars, it's settling in your lungs, it's settling in your respiratory tract, it's settling in your nostrils as well.
Yes.
So the persons who have allergies, that just means that their bodies are reacting a little bit more to what's in the air, and then it would trigger the sinuses to try and clear it out. But those persons who do not have that reaction, it's just building up. So persons with asthma, it can trigger the asthma. I know persons who have had to rush their kids to hospital because of the Sahara dust. So we need to be a little bit more mindful of that. And if you have children who are asthmatic, please be mindful of that. If it's not affecting you, it will be affecting them.
Yeah, for sure. So this morning we're here to talk about the hurricane season.
That's right.
And it is already upon us. I think last week we have been getting some showers, and I guess that was a little sign for some of us. And we saw some small landslides around the place.
Yes.
Yeah, and we know that our communities are prone to getting affected as it relates to during the hurricane season, and we just want, like I was saying before, for families and people to come together and start doing what they're supposed to do as a family, to put measures in place and to prepare for the hurricane season. And the issue we've been having is that a lot of people want to wait last minute to do things, or even when we are amidst everything, they don't listen to the advice that is given to them by the relevant authorities. And that is why we have you here, Ms. Kazabo, to guide our listeners when it comes to, what they should do, what they shouldn't do, and so on. So I guess now you'd want to speak about a little bit about the names of the hurricane season and how many they feel that we really reached at the hurricane level and so on. So I'll leave that to you.
Okay, thank you very much. So, again, listeners, this 2025 hurricane season started yesterday. The hurricane season is from June 1st to the end of November. This year, the hurricane season is forecast to be slightly above average. The Colorado State University predicts, and that's their forecast, between 14 to 20 named storms, out of which 7 to 12 will develop into hurricanes, and we could have between 2 and 6 major hurricanes, and a major hurricane is from category 3 or higher. The U.S. National Oceanographic and Atmospheric Administration and NOAA, they predict 13 to 16 named storms. They expect 6 to 10 to become hurricanes and between 3 to 5 becoming major hurricanes. So this is an above average hurricane season that we are expecting. So for us, NEMO issued a press release that I think persons would have been seeing on social media or on WhatsApp.
But you can still read it. I think it should be.
Okay, I can read it out for you.
Yes, you should still read it.
Okay, so the press release was issued yesterday, the 1st of June, and it reads, hurricane season starts today, Sunday, 1st of June, so that was yesterday. Sunday, June 1st marks the official beginning of the 2025 hurricane season for the North Atlantic, the Caribbean Sea, and the Gulf of America. The hurricane season runs from June to November every year. Early forecasts from reputable hurricane forecasting centers such as Colorado State University and NOAA Climate Prediction Center suggest that this season will be busier than normal. The UK Met Office, in their forecast released on May 9th, predicted an average of 16 named storms, 9 hurricanes, and 4 major hurricanes. So I already gave you what the predictions were from Colorado State University and the NOAA Climate Prediction Center. In addition, the Caribbean Institute for Meteorology and Hydrology, CIMH, they forecast 19 named storms, 9 hurricanes, and 4 major hurricanes. An average season will produce 40 named storms. So all the other forecasting agencies are predicting more than 40 named storms. With us in the Caribbean, CIMH is predicting 19 named storms. 7 hurricanes, that's what is average, but we're predicting 9 hurricanes and the average of 3 major hurricanes, and the CIMH is predicting 4 major hurricanes. Key factors that influence this season's forecast is warmer than normal temperatures in the North Atlantic and the Caribbean Sea, which can fuel storm development and intensification, low wind shear, and an active West African monsoon. Some meteorologists also note that ENSO conditions have a minor role. Although the seasonal precipitation outlook for St. Lucia for the period June to November is for the likelihood for rainfall to be below normal, heavy rainfall events that could trigger flash flooding and landslides remain a major concern this year. Excess heat, which may have implications for public health and well being, is also forecasted for the period June to November. So they're predicting a lower than normal rainfall for St. Lucia, but when we do get rain, it's going to be intense, heavy rainfall, which can trigger flash flooding. So, overall, from June to November, they expect less rainfall to fall than average for us in St. Lucia, but if we do get any heavy rainfall events, it will cause flash flooding. Let me continue reading. Regardless of preseason forecast, the St. Lucia Meteorological Services urges all residents and stakeholders in the region to remain vigilant and proactive in their hurricane season preparations. Stay informed by regularly monitoring regional weather updates and paying close attention to local reports, advisories, and bulletins issued by the St. Lucia Meteorological Services. Additionally, the National Emergency Management Organization, NEMO, will provide crucial instructions and information which should be closely followed for safety and preparedness. As usual, the St. Lucia Meteorological Services will be utilizing all available communication channels and facilities, including local news and social media, to transmit timely information to the St. Lucian populace and other interested parties. The hurricane season ends on November 30th, and this was issued by meteorologist Venantius Descott. The names for this year's hurricane season, I don't know if you know anybody with those names, but they are Andrea, Barry, Chantal, Dexter, Erin, Fernand, Gabrielle, Umberto, Imelda, Jerry, Karen, Lorenzo, Melissa, Nestor, Olga, Pablo, Rebecca, Sebastian, Tanya, Van, and Wendy. So these are the names that will be used for this year's hurricane season. And our season, they're looking at some area for possible development in the Western Caribbean, that's off of Central America for later this week already. And the Pacific, the Eastern Pacific already has its first named tropical storm for this season already. So we have to start paying attention to the news, to the meteorological forecasts, as well as any advisories issued by NEMO.
I think I was reading something different from yours, but I think it says the same thing.
Okay.
Yeah. So let's get into now that persons have heard the advisory from NEMO and the Met Office. Now is the time for us to speak about, how do we ask persons to plan for the hurricane season? What should they do as a family or, maybe around their home? Or what guidance can you give persons as it relates? Oh, first of all, I forget to say our emergency shelters, because I'm not sure if everybody knows where emergency shelters are and if they have changed.
Okay, so every year, the ministry, Government of St. Lucia has a team that is supposed to go around the island conducting inspections for the emergency shelters. And those shelters would then be gazetted. So those that meet the standard, meet the criteria, would then be gazetted. That has not been done for this year as yet. It's supposed to be done pretty soon, and that list will be released as soon as possible. I hope we do not have a case where we're going to wait for the first system to come around for them to rush to get it done. But in Soufriere, we had our first pre-hurricane season meeting last week, Friday. That's the Soufriere District Disaster Committee. We met on Friday evening, and we do plan amongst ourselves for us to do our own inspections. We're not going to wait on government to come and do the inspection. We're going to do our own inspections, and we're developing our own criteria that we're going to propose. And for us to then, when they do come to meet us, we already have our information prepared for them. But we have to wait for the list to be gazetted, because on our own, we cannot designate any place of shelter. That is something that's the purview of the director of NEMO and the minister, the prime minister. So that has to be done and then gazetted. But as of right now, the list for 2024 would remain the same. until the new list for 2025 is put into effect. So stay tuned for that. When it is out, we will definitely be passing information on to the different radio stations in Soufriere for them to announce it as well. Sorry, I was getting a call. My apologies. The phone is on vibrate.
That's all right. That's all right.
So we have not done the assessment. So the group of us with the Soufriere Disaster Committee will be doing that sometime this week or early next week for us to get that the assessments done. So what we're looking for is the conditions of the roof, the structural integrity of the building, whether the building has shower facilities, what's the spacing for requirement for housing people. Is there we will be doing our own assessment. Is there a kitchen facility that we can utilize? What would we need for us to set up beds or cots? Like for the schools, for instance, you can push desks together, but for the St. Isidore Hall, for instance, you would need to bring cots in. From the disaster chair committee, the chairs of every disaster committee in Soufriere, in St. Lucia, sorry, they met last week, and our chair, he has placed an order for us to restock our own warehouse. We'll be doing a clean out of the warehouse. Everything that expired from last year will be replaced. I mean, we have water stored, so we need to get rid of that. The expired stuff. We have some hygiene packs, some of these things. For instance, the first aid kits. If those little packs in them are expired, we need to go through them and throw out what's there. So we'll be doing that this week, Saturday. And we have a few other things that we're planning internally for us to do. We'll be producing some flyers that we will be then disseminating to everybody. Flyers on what you need to put in your hygiene, in your emergency kit, what you need to do for your family emergency plan, your evacuation routes in the event of any disaster. And when we're talking a bit about disaster, yes, we are in the hurricane season, but we need to be prepared year round because Soufriere is vulnerable with earthquakes, with storm surge, which could be sea swells, which does not necessarily have to come from a hurricane. It would be affecting us. So we need to be mindful of that as well.
Yeah, the sea swells for sure. I think people will take that into consideration. I didn't even remember that, to say the truth. As it relates to the packages, the planning ahead, and it relates to what can you tell people to put together? I mean, as the hurricane season is starting, what should the family put together and to ensure that they have at home as the hurricane season is starting right now?
Okay, first and foremost, every family should ensure that their home is made ready for the hurricane season. So we do this year after year. We know what we need to do. Clear any overhanging branches. Make sure we have all our gutters that are made clear. If you have to pay somebody to go on your roof to clear the guttering for your roof to ensure that doesn't have standing water that can create an issue for your roof to collapse. Ensure that you're outside of your home, you have, if there's anything that can fly away, that you know what it is, so that when we do have a hurricane, you will know what you need to secure. Board up figure out how you need to board up your windows. Install hurricane shutters if you are able to. So those are the things that you have to do on the outside of your house. Inside of your house, I mean, if you have electronic appliances where you need to go, put them, if you are in the area that is susceptible to flooding, you want to raise those appliances off the ground, which switches that need to go off. Make sure if you're not there, that the children who are in the house old enough know which breakers to turn off. You need to have your family evacuation plan. So if there's a disaster and you need to evacuate your house, that you and the children in the house and the elderly who are in the house know where your escape route is and where you're going to. So if your house is not safe enough and you have a relative or a friend close by that you can evacuate to their home, that they would know which home that you're all going to be running to. I have a friend of mine for Hurricane Ali. The roof of their house blew off, and during the height of the hurricane, they had to run across to a cousin's house. I was directly across the road. So They were able to tell the children, this is where we're going, for everybody to then run across together. And it was a scary thing for them because there was galvanized flying around them. They had to be ducking from tree branches and things. Some items actually hit them. So we need to be mindful of that. Um, that it's not just the adults who know what the evacuation route is, but also the children would need to know what the evacuation route is, where they're going to. We also want persons to put together your emergency kit. We want everybody to start thinking ahead. In the event of a disaster, and I learned this from Simone, may she rest in peace, everybody should have an emergency bag. That emergency bag should have at least 1 liter of water per person. You need to have at least one change of clothing, including undergarments. You need to have your hygiene pack, so your deodorant, your soap, your toothbrush, your toothpaste, etc. If you can afford it, when you're running, if you have to run, you pick up what you need and put it in the bag right away. You need to have your important documents. I recommend it being double bagged. Put it first in a Ziploc and then you can tie it in a separate bag. So that if you have any flooding, if that bag gets wet, your emergency documents like your passport, birth certificate, land papers, your bank book, well, we don't really deal with bank books anymore, but
Your will.
the will, yes, the will, all those things should be secured so that when you are running, you just pick it up, put it in the bag, and you go. It should also have a small first aid kit, a flashlight, a whistle. So when you're at the train, go to a party, or you see a whistle around, buy a whistle and put it in that bag. So that if you are trapped somewhere, you can take out the whistle and blow so that persons can hear and get an idea as to where it is that you are. We also encourage persons to have at least 1 day's worth of food. So a packet of Crick's biscuit and a can of something, some canned meats or something. Now, when you are evacuating your home to a shelter, NEMO by law is not required to feed persons not until 24 to 48 hours after. Red Cross, if they're able to, will step in within the first 24 to 48 hours, and thereafter NEMO will take over. But we have to understand that if there is a natural disaster like Hurricane Beryl when Hurricane Beryl hit St. Vincent Grenada and the Grenadines, or when Maria hit Erica, the whole island was in a mess. Transportation was impeded by several landslides all over these islands. So relying on Red Cross to come to your aid in the first 24 hours should not be on your mind. You should be able to provide for your family within the first 24 to 48 hours, and then government would come in. Fortunately for us in Soufriere, we've been able to provide some level of immediate assistance. So we do stock at the beginning of every hurricane season when I say some, a little bit of emergency supplies. Thereafter, you're responsible for yourself. And can you imagine if we were to have a big disaster that covers hundreds of households? NEMO would not be able to supply everybody in the first 24 to 48 hours. So please think of yourself, think of your family, and get your emergency kit prepared. Get your family supplies done. On NEMO's website, on their Facebook page, there are some lists of items that you could put in your first aid kit. And we would encourage persons every week, if you are unable to go and do a bulk shopping before an event, you can plan ahead. So every week when you get paid, if you buy a packet of Cricks, put it away. Put it in a bucket with a seal lid. Next week you buy a can of tuna fish, and then you keep adding so that you have your stockpile. So in the event of a disaster, you have something that you can rely on. So at my home, for instance, I have one bag. Both my son and my daughter now knows that if we have to escape, you go with that bag. They know where our passports and our documents are. They know that they have to take that and put it in the bag first before we can run out. I live on the bottom floor of a 2-story building. If we have to evacuate, we know what our emergency plan is. In fact, I was just joking with my daughter a couple weeks and I asked her, if we have to evacuate, where do we go? And she's like, I don't want to stay in Soufriere, we'll go to Castries by my grandmother. So that's what she was telling me. If Hay is going to flood, if she said if Soufriere is going to flood, she does not want to stay in Soufriere. She wants to go to Castries where her grandmother's house will not get flooded. So that's her idea of what an evacuation should be for her. So person should have that discussion with your children from preschool. Have that discussion with them. You can actually walk with them for them to know the route. If something happens to you as a parent, you get injured and the children would be by you, they do not know what to do, you need to let them know what it is that they're supposed to do. They should know at least how to dial 911. This show is called Casualty 911. They should know how to dial for emergency assistance. I know I forgot to pick up my daughter early one day from after school, and one of the parents who was there out of the blue was like, let me ask her, Amelie, what's your mommy's number? And she was shocked. My daughter from preschool, sorry, knew my number. I think from 2 years old, I had her memorize my phone number. So if anything happened, she would know my number. And I know some students at the primary school are asking them for their parents' number when you have activities and they don't know their parents' number. They have to look on the phone. So have the students memorize at least your number and emergency number 911 that they can at least call for help if they need to call for help.
Also, medical supplies for persons that are vulnerable and have medical conditions.
Most definitely. So in your emergency pack, if anybody is taking medication, that should be included. If you have any elderly and they have their special needs, make sure whatever it is that they need is in the emergency pack as well. If you have pets, ensure that you have food for your pets. Most shelters will not be accepting pets. We do not have the accommodation for us to have people and pets around. So make sure you have a plan for your pets. We also want persons, when you have a storm coming, do not keep your animals tied, because in that instance, you would have them drowning if there's a flood, or if they get trapped, they'll not be able to escape. So the advice is to let those animals loose in the event of a disaster so that they would be able to find safe ground. Animals are smart. They will know what to do if they need to escape.
Very much so. And I tend to agree with you. And many persons, we're saying all of these things, but yet still people with last minute, especially people with medical conditions where persons cannot stay without their medication. I mean, you need around that time, you need to have at least another month's supply of medication, because I mean, at that time, which pharmacy that's going to open for you,
Yes.
and so on. And also persons that have respiratory illnesses like COPD and this kind of stuff. You know, you need to make provision. Most times they ask persons to bring in your thing and come to the hospital and so on. So provisions can be made for persons with certain medical conditions, but you on your part need to do what you're supposed to do. And that is what we want persons to start doing. And also, you know, there are information out there from various agencies. And like Ms. Kazaba was saying, from Nemo on Nemo's Facebook page, and that's the time for you to add these organizations on your
Yes. Nemo has a WhatsApp channel on WhatsApp right now, so persons can be added to there and to follow the WhatsApp channel on. So Nemo has a WhatsApp channel, the same way you have YouTube channels. There's now WhatsApp channels, so you should be you should add yourself to the WhatsApp channel. Basically, follow it. Also, there is a disaster app called cap.cap, CAP.CAP, that anybody can download, and you get alerts for disasters. So if there's an impending hurricane, or if there's a tsunami threat, you would get an alert on your phone. So these apps, that app, for instance, it takes up very little space. You just leave it, install it on your phone, and you forget about it. And if there's a need for anything, then you'll get an emergency alert. And we need to start thinking in that manner, international. I know persons who travel, for instance, if you have any friends who have ever been to Taiwan or Japan, when you enter the country, you install those things on your phone, and their systems are so advanced that sometimes you get alerts before an earthquake happens. It's a few seconds or maybe a minute or more before the actual event, but you get an alert so that you can then start the evacuation process. And they're so used to that. It's like When we've had the Japanese volunteers or the Taiwanese volunteers come down, to them it's strange that we do not have that system set up. So when you start thinking, we have an app available that's done for the region, but when you set it up, you select St. Lucia, of course. If you travel to another island, you can switch the island. And if anything happens, you get an alert on your phone. I mean, we use our phones for contacting people, for keeping up to date. Let us start using it for weather and safety as well.
So you mentioned a while ago about the sea surges, and I remember, was it last year or early this year? We had an issue where they had all these things in the cemetery, and we saw
That was
persons.
burial last year.
That's buried.
That was burial last year.
And and I was wondering, you're looking at things on your phone and people's statuses, and that's one of the things I'm mostly concerned about. And at that time, the all clear wasn't given, and persons were just out there. And
And there were people who were injured.
Yes, some persons were injured because they end up being at the hospital, and they put themselves at risk by being in that water that was highly contaminated also. So what advice do you have for these persons that are,
Okay.
I wouldn't say inquisitive, but they don't adhere to what authorities have to say, especially before the all clear?
So in Soufriere, we have the deepest harbor in the Eastern Caribbean. Our harbor is naturally deep. We do not have a shelf. When you are behind the cemetery, for instance, on that beach, Soufriere Beach, and you're walking out, by the time you take 5 steps, you start going down, and there's no back up. It's just going down. If you're on the East Coast, for instance, you go to um, Dennery or Viewfort, Sandy Beach, even, and you walk out. I mean, I remember as a child, I went to Miku and I walked to the end of the peninsula, and I was still at waist height. I mean, you'd get some dips and you come back up, but you're still waist height. There's a shelf there, an underwater shelf, a sea shelf. We don't have a shelf per se in Soufriere. So for them, the sea breaks, it hits the shelf much further out, and then it comes in and the water disperses. We don't have that in Soufriere. Once the sea hits the shore, that's the shelf, and then it just piles up. So we will always be susceptible to storm surge. And it doesn't have to come from a hurricane. We've had the storm surges from troughs. We've had storm surges from hurricanes that don't even impact us. So think of Beryl, for instance. Beryl, the water got to as far as, I guess, it didn't reach the square. But Hurricane Janet, that's before my time, 1956. The sea reached the St. Isidore Hall on Boulevard Street. For Thomas, the sea reached the church on Church Street. Beryl, because of the angle of the waves, you had more of an impact on the northern shore. So that's why the sea reached all inside the cemetery. Any system from hurricane category 2 or 3 that passes south of us, so over St. Vincent, Grenada, Trinidad, we are going to be getting storm surge. Because of the way the hurricane is spinning, if the island is here, once it's spinning and it passes the island, it's going to be churning up water and sending that water towards us. If it goes north of us, we get water coming from the opposite direction because of the way the hurricane spin. They spin counterclockwise. So any system that passes us is going to create storm surge for us. The further south it is, the more the impact is going to be on us as well. We also get storm surges from, how you call that? Tropical systems or troughs in the North Atlantic. So something comes off the US, it bombs out, and then depending on the angle of the waves when it passes through the islands in the Greater Antilles, because of the way our coastline is, we get storm surges as well. As well, any hurricane that crosses over us and then goes the wrong direction, like Lenny, Dean, and Omar. Those systems started going in the opposite direction, would create storm surge for us. So we have several different scenarios that will create storm surge for us in Soufriere that we need to be mindful of. And the fishermen now, they understand. If I see anything, I immediately contact Rita. Rita contacts the fishermen, fisheries, and they start to evacuate. But they've been proactive this year. The Fisheries Cooperative at our very first meeting last week asked, they now realize that having the fishing vessels dry dock the vessels within the fisheries complex is not safe enough. So they now want to work with us to find an alternative. So we're meeting with them Wednesday this week, I think. No, I hit my ankle yesterday. It's still sore. So Wednesday this week, I think we are meeting with the Fisheries Cooperative either Wednesday or Thursday. Well, I can't do Thursday. So most likely Wednesday or Friday, we'll meet with Fisheries Cooperative and the police, as well as a liaison officer from SRDF for us to look at the map of Soufriere and see where would be the ideal location for these vessels to park, for these fishermen to put their yachts on, for the fiberglass vessels that we have, those doing the day charter tours, for them to safely park their boats in the event of any storm surge. So before, when I just started working at SMMA, we had a hesitancy from the fishermen and persons with their vessels. When we would alert them, they would say, "On n'est pas qu'à faire, on n'est pas vini." Then I realized I started taking a cue from Mystic Man. But Mystic Man and myself, we were chatting. So whenever we would see something happening, Mystic Man would not immediately take his boats up to Marigot for safe harbor, because Marigot is a safe harbor for vessels. However, not everybody would follow Mystic Man's cue. So once they see Mystic Man move, they know they have to move something serious. But now I think they have gotten they have seen the impact. They realize the economic losses that they themselves suffer when their vessels are down, because it's affecting their livelihood. I mean, if your boat is not open, you cannot fish or you cannot go and pick up tourists, you're in problems. You're not generating any income. So once we let them know that they need to start moving, they actually do that. So for burial last year, I think that's one of the times that ahead of anything happening, there were no vessels on the water. None. Everybody responded. Unfortunately, we cannot predict how bad the storm surge is going to be. We cannot predict the level, the height of the storm surge, how bad it's going to be. So everybody's vessel was on shore, but not as far inland as it probably should have been. So we want to be proactive this time around, this hurricane season, and find safe enough locations where vessels can go and park so that we would not be placing their vessels at risk when they are onshore. And for the persons who are sightseers, please, for your health and safety, we have had people whose legs were broken because they stepped in manholes or they stepped in drains. We've had persons who got serious cuts because they stepped on some sharp metal that was underwater. We've had persons who were sucked through the drains. I remember for Lenny, it was somebody got sucked out at sea, and then people had to then risk their lives to go and pick them up from behind the cemetery, paddle on a surfboard in the high waves and try and pick them. We've had some incidences, and I am telling you, as a deputy director of the disaster committee in Soufriere, if we ask a community to evacuate and people choose to stay, I am not placing any of my volunteers at risk to go and save anybody, to go and assist anybody if they then find themselves in trouble. If you take the decision to stay and place yourself at risk, when something happens to you, you will now take the responsibility to get yourself to safety. I remember for Omar or Dean, where we had storm surge in Soufriere, we had asked people to evacuate and they chose not to. When the sea came up in Barons Drive, there was a scramble to get people out, and there were some people who had elderly and they were trying to get their elderly relatives out. And the pole there was electrical spark, and persons who were in the water they felt the shock. I am not placing any of my volunteers at risk to go and assist anybody who defies the order for evacuation and choose to stay there. If you choose to stay there, you will choose to find yourself out of harm's way if you find yourself in harm's way.
Yeah, because these volunteers have their own family members also. They have
Exactly.
their own responsibility. And many times you find out people that go out to try to save other persons, sometimes they
And
end up losing their lives also. So persons need to take that into consideration. It's not about them at the time.
yep,
But then,
exactly.
putting other people's lives at risk, even our own police officers, fire officers, and all of these persons. I mean, you have to think of all of these things. Persons don't want to leave the comfort of their home, but there comes a time where when authority gives a directive, you have to follow it. You cannot wait last minute and think persons will come to your rescue. You had enough time. Yes, sometimes they have enough time to do what they need to do. And
Yes.
even not only in St. Lucia, you get that, even when you look at certain places that are prone to flooding and so on, and you see persons on top of their house, whereas so many people evacuate already, and these persons decide to stay. And well, luckily they have helicopters and stuff to come and take them out, but in St. Lucia, we do not have this kind of stuff. So if they go out there and they want to stay, they stay at their own risk. And that is what people need to understand. And I'm so happy that you said to them that, I mean, if the order is given out to evacuate and you choose to stay, don't expect other persons to there will be good Samaritans, but
I will do like they do in the US. If you choose to stay, have the police go out with a loudspeaker that says, if you stay there, take a permanent marker, write your name on your skin in permanent marker, and your next of kin, yes, that's what they do. They ask them to write because when they dead, the permanent marker will remain on the skin and they can identify them because most times the clothing is stripped off of their bodies and it's
really,
just a
that's
body they would find. Yeah, they would ask them to write, take a permanent marker and write your name on your skin and your next of kin.
that's hard. Because persons don't listen. A lot of people don't listen. And I'm so happy that you made mention about people need to start doing what they need to do. It's a pity. Do you have any advice for our people out there? It's already 11 o'clock. I know we started a little bit late, but
Well, I would just want to tell persons from Soufriere that we are in the hurricane season. It started yesterday, so please make all your preparations. We go through this year after year, year in, year out. We pray that we do not get impacted by any severe hurricane or we do not have any flooding in issues in Soufriere. We know we will have landslides with heavy rainfall. But persons, I would implore you, residents from Soufriere, colleagues, my friends, please get yourselves ready. Yourself, your family, get yourselves ready because we never know when it would be our turn. And for anyone who is interested in becoming a NEMO volunteer, you can contact Placid or myself to fill out a form so that you could join and become one of our NEMO volunteers. And I would like to implore persons from Soufriere. I was disheartened after Hurricane Thomas when persons refused to help themselves, refused to help the community in removing mud from the primary school, the infant school, and the special ed to clear even the drains and the streets in front of their homes. I saw persons dig mud out of their homes with a wheelbarrow, dump it into the drain. And then when it rained again, since the drain was blocked, their homes flooded again because of them not clearing the mud. And when I had asked them before to take the mud out of the street, the response I got was they waiting for the minister to come and pay them. That is not the attitude you need to have during a disaster at all. I think we have become too reliant on government, on the Soufriere Foundation for financial help. In the event of a disaster, you do all you can to help yourself. The idea of waiting on somebody to pay you for you to go and clear out a school where your children go to school, to me, was foreign. It pains me to say it, but I will say it. The first set of people who came to help dig out sand from Soufriere Primary came from a SDA group in Bexon, not Soufriere. I didn't see anybody helping the teachers who were trying to salvage what they could from the school for your children. And it took a group of SDA volunteers from Bexon to come and dig a pathway so that the teachers could get access to their classrooms. Come on, Soufriere, we can do better than that.
They can. So we're asking community mobilization. We're asking everybody to come in together as one community, yeah, in time of need. And I mean, that dependency syndrome is going on for too long. It's time that we branch out of it so we can set examples for the generation that is coming up, and for our children to know, they cannot depend on government to do everything for us. And that's one of the issues we've been having, not only in Soufriere, but many other communities. And I'm so glad you mentioned that. Around a time like that, you do what you have to do, and it's for your own good. And I'm so glad you mentioned it. So again, thank you so very much, Miss Casabo, for coming on the program and
Thank
making the effort. Yeah, because I know sometimes it can be very difficult. I mean, sometimes when you invite persons, you must realize persons have their own work, they have their family life, they have everything else, and it can be very hectic. But again, and also Mr. Placid, he had already said yes, and then he could not make it this morning, and I'm glad you tried your best to come in. And let me just say thank you to all our listeners. Oh, I am. Somebody said good morning. Um, oh, Jenny said St. Lucia, please be prepared. Good morning, Janice. I hope all is well. And and our family abroad, they are really concerned sometimes when they hear things are happening, especially with St. Lucia as it relates to disasters and so on. And with climate change, you never know what can happen sometimes.
Yes.
And climate change plays an integral role in that hurricane season. So we have to be so very mindful. So thank you again to all our listeners. Do take care, and hope that you take everything that Miss Casabo has said into consideration, especially the fact she said, start getting your stuff together one by one. I mean, one by one fills the basket for sure. So we're asking persons be mindful when you enter the supermarket. Just grab one stuff at a time, and ensure that the family members have enough water, enough food, enough medication, and also personal items are well secured. And like she said, come together as a family, prepare an evacuation plan. Don't wait last minute, especially if you have babies and you have elderly persons at home. So take all of that into consideration. Like she said, information will be disseminated to you all. And please, when you get that flyer, don't just throw it all about Soufriere Town and don't take time to read it. If you cannot read it, have somebody else read it for you. Because there's other information that is given out. And I know people are quick to say that nothing was done previously. And, oh, I never knew, they never said it, but it has been out there. And hopefully that we can take all of these things into consideration and weather out that storm, that hurricane season throughout. And I'm sending out a message to all our farmers, our construction workers, and these persons, especially farmers. We talk about fishermen, but some farmers are hard in hearing also. On the day, they still go into their garden and so on, and that can, many persons have lost their lives like this. Or, so let's just be mindful. And again, thank you so very much. So here is the biggest thing. I do not know how to end the session because I'm not so very tech savvy, but I think John did teach me. So I am trying to see how best I can end this session. Um, so where is Rome today? Why Rome not coming and save me? So goodbye everybody and do take care.